Muses of Mythology is a spoiler-heavy podcast.
That's an understatement.
We're going to discuss not just the events of this book, but the Rhineverse as a whole, and really anything that we feel is relevant. You can find full spoiler warnings in the show notes. Oh, god damn it, Walmart doesn't have my potatoes.
Sad. Just go in and grab a bag of potatoes.
It'll be fine. I don't know. They'll replace it with
What kind of potatoes are you
something.
going for?
I just need a bag of russet potatoes, but now I'm worried they're going to replace it with like sweet potatoes or something stupid like they do.
Right.
Okay. Welcome to Muse of Mythology, a podcast where we explore how ancient myths become part of modern pop culture through the lens of Rick Riordan's Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. This is Story 93, Nidavellir, Alfheim.
As far as time.
I'm your co-host and podcasting muse, Darian Smart. Joining me is my co-host and brother, DJ.
How's everybody doing today? I'm DJ the Muse, and I got a lot on my plate recently. You know, too many games are coming out. I got to play through all of them. It sucks.
What a problem to have.
Honestly.
Is it just the Dragon Ball game?
No, it's Black
No?
Myth Wukong. It's Final Fantasy 16.
That would definitely didn't just
That's
come out.
coming out. Well, that just came out on PC.
I see. Okay, I think we need to muse about this in the garden for a moment. DJ, this is going to be a little bit more of a somber garden experience.
Yes.
So, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners are aware, especially if you're in the United States, but globally as well, the southeast of the U.S. was recently bombarded with two massive hurricanes, Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And it was a disaster, to say the least.
It was very worrisome. There was obviously a lot of damage and flooding. It's a scary situation, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And we personally have, well, DJ has colleagues in the area, but I have personally very good friends in the area. AJ from our sister podcast, Standby Line, Megs, who's been a guest on the show, Lachlan, who lives down in that area, who's a past guest of the show. A lot of people really care about their family members and just other human beings in general. So this month, for our Patreon donation, we will be donating to relief efforts to help aid in the recovery and support for these communities.
We have 10 patrons, so we will also be donating $10 on top of the 10 patrons to make it around 20.
There are a number of organizations that are working in the area. At the time of recording, we haven't actually picked which one we're going to donate to. I'm going to reach out to our sister podcast, Standby Line, who's also donating to relief efforts, and identify where our donation can do the most good at this time. By the time the episode airs, we will have done that. You will be able to find a link and more information on how you can help these communities down in the show.
And now back to the show.
DJ, we have a guest.
That
We have a new guest.
Oh.
DJ, why don't you introduce our guest?
Our guest is Elliot.
And where is Elliot from, DJ?
The UK.
No! That was mean of me. I'm sorry. We have Elliot from the Demigod Pod, who I will let them decide whether or not they want to reveal their geographic location on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm French.
Which was the most insulting thing you could have said, DJ. They're from the UK?
Well,
It's late where they are.
it's
I don't know
not
anything
technically
else.
false. I have a British passport, so
Well, look at that. How bougie.
Citizenship.
yeah, I'm French. We say it very explicitly on our podcasts, so we don't hide it.
Understandable.
I know the Americans tend to not like the French. But
I thought y'all didn't like us. It's just been a misunderstanding the whole time and we could have been friends?
no, I think
I
the
just like the
French
surrendering
hate
memes. I think it's fun.
everyone equally.
That's fair. I mean, we did team up against the British, and so I feel like we could really get back to that energy if we tried.
Yeah.
They gave us the Statue of Liberty.
Okay. Creating international treaties is not what this episode is about. This episode is going to be about elves and dwarves in Norse mythology. Elliot, you asked to be here. Tell us about your Rick Riordan verse affiliation.
Oh, how I got into
Yeah, how
Riordan?
did you come here? record screech, we're wondering how you got here today.
Well, my first association with Rick Riordan was actually in the UK, ironically enough, and I was at McDonald's, I think, with my family, and they were giving the first Percy Jackson film as a DVD, like when you got the Happy Meal.
At McDonald's? They gave you the movie?
Yeah, and they used to do that in the UK. They would give like a free DVD every time you got a Happy Meal or something.
Oh my god, I need to reflect on this for a second. That's wild. Please go on.
That's crazy.
Wait, are you telling us that your first experience to Percy Jackson was the Percy Jackson live action movie that you got in DVD at McDonald's? Incredible.
That's so rough.
Incredible.
Hate to see
Go on.
And yeah, I watched it. I liked it a lot at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was very young. Yeah. I thought it was really cool, and so I think I asked my parents, is it based on a book or something? And they said yes. So I went to Waterstones and bought the whole series and read it immediately.
Oh yeah, because you are a youth and were able to just read all the books all at once and not wait for them to come out every summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think...
Shut up, DJ.
Big fan of that. It was great. And it wasn't even... it wasn't like... I mean, I was growing up as they were coming out, and I was reading Trials when it was coming out. But I stopped reading Trials, and then it was just completely out. And I'm like, great. And that's how it was for every other book. I would stop him, and then suddenly when I get back to them, they're all out? Nice.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think Chalice... the senior trilogy is the only one where, I read it before the thing is finished.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Wow, what a luxury. If you were a part of that led down the whole track of everything, and now you also do a Percy Jackson podcast, because it is inevitable. Everyone will do a Percy Jackson podcast at some point. We all have
it was for
feelings.
uni.
It's so good.
It was for university. As a university.
Oh yeah, you told me about that. It was a project. That's so cool.
Yeah, and we won money actually. We won 150 euros because it was a contest,
awesome.
Competition thingy for my university, and I think we got 10th place or something out of hundreds.
That's so cool.
That's incredible.
And I think we just use the money to pay for a year of Riverside.
That's so good though. Riverside is expensive.
And I think that's basically what I think we won best dynamic duo or something like that. It was fun, but basically what we had to do was do a podcast that was linked to our major. Mm-hmm. And my major is English literature. And the theme was childhood. And I was like, English literature, childhood, what is a book I like to read as a child? And so I thought about Percy Jackson.
Smart. Yeah. Well done. I'm so glad you did that. I'm so glad you're in the space with us. That's so cool.
Yeah, the community has been absolutely amazing this past year. Even just on... Yeah, I don't know if we're allowed to you can cut that out, but just on Discord and stuff is.
Oh no, we talk about the Discord all the time.
Okay, because Robert told me that it was a secretive thing.
Well, if that was true, Robert should have told me that exactly 4 years ago when they invited me to the Discord. So we definitely talk about how there is a Percy Jackson Podcasters Discord all the time. So.
Well, it's absolutely the whole community aspect has been amazing. I never knew I could, meet people.
Yeah.
From all around the world.
That is maybe the most special part about it, is suddenly turning around and being like, hey, I have a lot of friends. Friends. People that I traveled to see, who traveled to see me, who, when we're in the same area, make plans to connect. And that feels really special. And it's because we all like this same kind of silly mythology book series that means so much to us. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, Elliot, here's a fun question that I love to ask our guests. If you were in the Riordanverse, where do you think you would exist?
I think I would be probably in Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah.
Because I have always been very close to Greek mythology. I go to Greece almost every year, so...
Damn, that's cool.
Nice.
It's so French.
It's so European.
It's so European.
Yeah, like you said on our podcast, we're in the same area.
I did say that. It's true. It's like me going to Texas. It's a thing, but not a big deal.
Pretty much, actually, yeah.
Okay, so Cape Half-Blood, which cabin?
I think Charlie had asked me to do a quiz or something, and I got Son of Poseidon. So
How'd you feel about that?
I like it. I thought I would either be a Son of Poseidon or Athena, and yeah, I remember when I was younger,
Nice.
we used to, like very young, I used to pretend like to play with my friends, and I was the son of Poseidon and Athena. So
Cute. That's very good.
so yeah, probably that, a camper. I don't think I would survive very long though.
Elliot! Just being
I think,
realistic.
Yeah. Or I wouldn't be the kind of a camper that would go on quests. I think I would just chill at camp.
That's fair. Just chill and go home at the end of the summer. Yeah. This is a question I've asked guests often, and I don't think... so fun fact, hey, it's our 4-year anniversary!
Oh my god,
In
wow.
October, 4
Congratulations.
years. Thank you. So I'm using this as a mini opportunity before we get into the actual meat of the episode. I want to real quick just revisit how in early episodes back when we were podcasting Poseidon, I was always a hunter of Artemis and DJ was from whatever cabin. I would like to officially state that in the Riordanverse, I would absolutely be a magician. Probably an acolyte of Bast or Anubis. Because I have a brand.
Ooh. Death.
Yes.
I'd be amused. I don't
Spooky
know.
bitch. Sorry, DJ, what'd you say?
I'd just be amused. I don't
You're
know.
just
Like,
amused. You're just vibing? Just vibing and keeping it tight?
Just be
Yeah,
a minor god.
I'm the race of the muse, whatever they be.
They be muse.
I'm just one of those.
They be musing. Just musing right along. Awesome.
I'm not one of the 9.
No. You're like a minor muse.
Yeah.
You don't want the responsibility and the pressure of being like a deity or a demigod or something like that. You just want to hang
What
out.
would be your art form?
I don't know.
Gaming?
Right? Yeah.
I would just, I would be the muse that's just hitting people with random inspiration in the middle of the night.
Oh, the muse of
Just
now I can't sleep.
Just the crazy shit. Get fucked. It's never going to come to fruition. You don't have the drive.
Oh, DJ! Oh no, that's so mean. You don't have the drive is the coldest thing I've ever heard someone
So
say.
rude.
Okay, I'm dragging us into the episode now. I have to get away from that. That was upsetting. That I feel personally attacked as my draft sits unfinished in my Google Docs. I have to walk away. Okay, so now I will ask Elliot, hey, why did you want to come on and talk about elves and dwarves?
I thought they were cool.
Hell yeah.
You put a list, and I realized I know nothing. I have no idea what any of that means. And I was looking at all the things. I was thinking, okay, what do I know the most about? And I saw like elves. I don't even think you wrote elves and dwarves. I think you just wrote something and like a weird word. And I thought the word sounded cool. And then you said, yeah, you can come. And so I agreed.
Yeah.
And at the time, I hadn't read Magnus Chase.
Oh, I didn't
And
know
so-
that.
and I know nothing about Norse mythology, like nothing. And so what you wrote down, I didn't understand anything, so I really just picked at random.
I think I probably wrote down like Nidavellir, Alfheim, and Svartalfheim.
Yeah,
because that's just one of
like
those
that.
are just the worlds.
And I read the first book,
Uh-huh.
and then I had a bunch of uni stuff, and I forgot to read the rest. And then you told me, I think 2 days ago, no, yesterday, you told me that we would collab. So
Okay, no. I said Saturday, hey, the only time we record now is at 2 a.m. your time. I didn't know if you were still interested. And you said yes.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, we're going to record this Wednesday, actually. So I did give you not enough notice, but I just confirmed for sure yesterday.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. You're right. Call me out. Put me on blast. That's fair.
And so I reread the first book again. Well,
Excellent.
part of it. I'm 3/4 through.
You're
just to delve
refresh
myself into the world. Yeah, refresh myself.
Okay. So we will avoid, for the sake of our guest, major spoilers from the other two books, which I think will be easy.
You can spoil me. I've been spoiled about half of them. Like, I've been spoiled.
Honestly, in this particular episode, there aren't very many, like, plot points from the books that I think will interrogate too much. I think the only thing is we don't actually go to Alfheim until the second book.
Yeah.
We'll just start with Nidavellir. Who wants to tell us what Nidavellir is? Anyone? Bueller?
Nidavellir is... It's the dwarf. Is it the dwarves or is it the dark elves?
It is the dwarves.
Svartalfheim is the dark elves.
Yes. In Magnus Chase specifically.
Okay. Yeah, it's the dwarf place. It's great.
It is.
It's everything's handcrafted. There's no AI generation anywhere.
They would fucking not stand for that shit. The dwarves.
They would not be super into it.
DJ, whenever you pause
I'm
and make
not
that
a
little
Magnus
chuckle,
Chase
I'm always very scared about what you're going to say next.
Well, I was just going to bring up the fact that Blitzen made a tanning bed for his elf.
Yeah, he did. There's no sun down there.
Very, very sweet.
They're so good.
Very good.
True.
Yeah, no sun.
Mm-hmm. Listen, their bond, unbreakable.
It's very good.
It's cute.
In the lore, the Magnus Chase Gods of Asgard lore section on the notes, I described it as neon underground realm of the dwarves. Everything has a name. Home to dwarves and, quote, dark elves, who are just a taller dwarf and children / descendants of Freya, because Rick chose a hit piece to base his version of the goddess on. And Svartalfheim is mentioned. Blitz says he's from there, but he lives in Nidavellir. So I think that kind of means Svartalfheim is like in Nidavellir somewhere. It's like you're in New York and here's a borough. You're in He's like from Brooklyn.
Maybe.
That's just what I'm going to go off of.
Was it described as neon?
No, but in the 9 from the 9, the art page of Nidavellir has neon, and I have adopted that as underground neon.
If it's in 9 from the 9, that's like the art page. I imagine it's relatively canon then.
Like it's neon all around.
Because I think they can't have like super bright lights, right? Like anything that replicates the sun.
You don't want any like UV.
And that relates to neon?
Well, neon's a type of light that doesn't exude like UV rays.
Like, I thought you meant neon colors, just
no, neon lights,
fair.
little...
That would be crazy, though.
Las Vegas-ass lights all over.
But everything is also painted neon black light colors.
I thought...
There's no black light, though.
No.
I was just imagining just a place with a bunch of neon colors everywhere.
That would be incredible.
It's like a cyberpunk-esque.
Underground cyberpunk.
Oh, like an Arcane.
Yes.
I haven't seen Arcane, but probably, yeah. I'll break it. Let's get into more about Nidavellir and the dwarves, and then we'll circle back and talk about the elves in the books and then the elf lore. So, Did not dig as much into the etymology as I usually would to verify. But the beginning of Wikipedia had just this crazy stuff. And I just wanted to share it because I found it insane. And I don't need, again, I usually will double check and verify with other things. But this was just wild enough that I wanted to share. So, according to Wikipedia, the breakdown of Nidavellir is Nid, which is new, but not need as in Nidhogg. Apparently, this is another term that translates to new moon or wane of the moon, and Valir, which means fields. So it would roughly translate to dark fields or downworld fields. There's another claim that it means Myrkmir, which is a compound of darkness and Hymir. So world of darkness, dark abode. Which is very 2013 Tumblr do not steal.
Very witchy.
A little bit.
This is my character. They're from Dark Abode.
Was it Darkness, Ravenia, something, My Immortal?
Yes! Yeah! Oh, yeah. Incredible.
Ebony Darkness or something.
Some shit like that.
You gotta respect. That's the ultimate question. It's like, was this sincere or was this the greatest parody of all time? And we will never know. The world will never know.
Yeah.
So, Nidavellir is mentioned in the Volspa, which is the Seer's prophecy. Seer is describing like all the things she has seen, everything the world is made up on. From the east there flows through poison valleys a river with knives and swords, fearful it is called. To the north there stood on dark of moon plains a hall of gold, of Sindri's lineage, and another stood on Never Cold, the beer hall of the giant Brimnir. So, the thing about this... Elliot, you have an expression.
There's a river of knives and swords.
Yeah.
Like just a river polluted with a bunch of weapons.
Or it's made of. Super fun fact about Norse mythology, that may be the only time it's mentioned.
Huh.
Nice.
Who's to say? There's just a river. It's called Fearful.
I wouldn't want to swim in it.
No, I would not either. That this translation I feel like sometimes maybe it over translates things, where it's like it is called fearful, but I bet there's like a old Nordic word there that is translated to fearful. And when it's like a proper noun, I don't know if I would necessarily translate what it means. I would maybe have like an appendix or a footnote for the translation, because I think that phrase that goes, the Dark of Moon Plains is probably it translating the name Nidavellir.
Huh.
Because the text would say the word that is the Nordic word, or the Old Norse word Nidavellir. But
Yeah.
we know this place is referenced, and we know it is where the dwarves live because of that reference to it being of Sindri's lineage. Because Sindri is a dwarf, is a well-known dwarf. At least, according to Snorri, he is.
Yeah, he's so well known that I have no idea who he is.
I only know like one dwarf.
DJ, what dwarf do you know?
Fafnir.
What did Fafnir do?
He is the dragon. He's the greed man.
He's the Korean
Wait,
man.
he's a dragon or he's a dwarf?
Yeah. He's the dragon that turns in, or he's the dwarf that turns into a dragon due to his greed. That's where that comes from.
We will get to that.
That's quite a glow up.
It's not particularly.
Fafnir.
He ends up murdering his whole family.
Oh, yeah. Well, sacrifices
remember
have
correctly.
to be made sometimes.
Okay, so I do want to tell y'all about Sindri because it's super great and it's got some like A+ Loki content. So sit back. This story comes from the Prose Edda. Specifically, it's from the Skaldskaparmal, which is just a collection of here's some mythological stories. Don't worry about it. Sindri and his brother Brokkr appear in a tale where they are competing against some other dwarves who are just referred to as the Sons of Ivaldi. And this competition was orchestrated by Loki. the brothers his own head that they couldn't make better gifts than the sons, because the sons had made these 3 gifts for the gods. They made Skidarblanur, sure, which is the flying ship of Frey, Gungnir, which is the spear belonging to Odin, and then they made the golden hair for Sif to replace when Loki cut all her hair off. And we'll just pin in that, get to that when we get to Loki. I didn't read too much. I'm just focused in on the dwarves here. I kind of suspect that Loki set up this contest to try to like appease the whole, hey, you cut off this goddess's hair and now everybody's pissed at you. Because the sons, oh, not the sons. So the sons made those 3 things. Sindri and his brother created Drenpnir, which is the golden ring that Odin wears that has the ability to multiply itself by 8 times every 9 nights. They created a golden boar that glows in the dark named Gullinbursti, which was a gift for Frey. And they made Mjolnir for Thor. And I think that last one needs no description.
I just had the thought of that ring that multiplies by 8 every 9 days. It's just a genie wish being like, I wish I got a gold bar that multiplied every day. And the genie's like, yeah, okay. It's every day on average, bud.
every 9th day, here's 8 more. It does sound like
it's not even going to be the ninth. Not even going to be the 9th day. You don't know when it's going to happen, but eventually it'll happen, and it'll explode because it's so many fucking days went by you forgot about it.
That is actually a top tier genie wish.
Where are you going to store all these rings? What's the point of having so many rings? And wouldn't
giving them out
rings.
Gifts?
Wouldn't they
briberies?
It would lose value because of how many there are.
I gotta think everybody has one at this point. Like every like Samhain, every winter solstice, every summer harvest, like Odin has to give a gift. He's giving everybody rings. Like everybody's got one. Everyone's got 6 at this point. This ring is actually the same ring that that Odin puts on Baldur's body at his funeral pyre. That Baldur then gives to the one god who went to hell to try to retrieve him. And he's like, no, take this ring, go back, tell him I'm not coming back.
That's kind of shitty.
Well,
if he has
it was
5,000.
It was like he knew he couldn't come back. Like, you can't, they all missed him.
OG ring? Or like one of the replicas?
I think it was the OG ring. Odin was real beat up about it. Or no, it's not that he couldn't go back. It's like, give my ring, give Odin back his ring to let him know you did in fact find me, and he couldn't come back because Loki was a shit about it. And then the boar, Freyr rides a boar to Baldur's funeral? Pretty sure it's the same boar. Also, speaking of dwarves, there's a dwarf named Litir who Thor just kicks into Baldur's funeral pyre for like no reason.
Asshole.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is a thing that is said that happens, and scholars literally don't know why. They don't know what this character represents. They don't know what it's supposed to like do. They
just be like, yeah, it's not like there's anything scratched out. We know this character's whole past, present, future. Thor just did that.
Yeah, and it's
just
the one
like
time
casual
that this character is mentioned.
homicide.
Yeah. It's the one place that this figure is mentioned. So I mentioned him because it's the dwarf episode.
Why do it like way to ruin the moment for a funeral? Now you're thinking about the other guy that's dead, and not the original person.
You're really pulling focus.
But maybe that guy was mouthing off about Baldur. Thor was also really beat up about Baldur.
Probably.
They were all about to kill Loki.
But it does just say, Thor just kicks this guy into the fire. No, there's not any buildup. It just happens. So.
Thor's just so angry to himself about Baldur's death that he just lets out a random moment of anger, and it happens to be this dwarf right in front of him.
Yeah,
I mean,
poor
probably.
dwarf.
Yeah. So, quick aside. So, those are all the super cool things they made. During the crafting process, a gadfly, which is believed to be Loki, kept interfering with the brothers. But despite the trouble, the gods still decided that Sindri and Brocker's creations were better. So they won the bet and were like, all right, we get Loki's head. And Loki said, no, because to get my head, you would have to damage my neck. And that wasn't part of the deal. So Brocker sewed his lips shut so he couldn't brag about it until the thread came loose.
And then I'd be like, well, I won't take it. I'll leave some of your head. How about that? You get to keep your bottom jaw.
Yeah.
So wait, Loki's mouth was sewn.
For a while.
Yeah.
Not permanently. It came loose eventually. In time for him to roll up and make everybody pissed at him at
Also,
a party sometime later.
What's a gadfly?
It's just like a big, ugly, buzzy fly.
Oh.
Bites. It's like a horsefly, I think. Actually, that is a great
I
question.
think.
Gad fly. It's just a type of fly. Cool. There's a lot of...
A bunch of
It's
flies.
specifically a fly that bites livestock, like a horsefly, a wobble fly, or a bobfly. They are ugly-ass flies.
Oh, I believe it. Flies are just ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I know any pretty flies.
Mm-mm.
I never looked at a fly. I was like, this one's pretty.
No. Sometimes I've seen one that are like really shiny, and I'm like, oh, that's a shiny fly. But I still don't think it's pretty.
Yeah.
So, that, I wanted to include the gadfly stuff because I was like, oh wait, this is the scene from the first Magnus book. Like, we get the whole thing. This is what Rick was playing off of. Right down to the gadfly of it all. But I also wanted to cite this tale because this story in particular is probably the major contributor to why dwarves historically, like from this time onward and in today's like modern media, are like almost always the most skilled craftsmen you'll find in the realm.
I thought you were going to say pushovers.
Elliot, what dwarves have you been encountering in media?
I don't know. But they're always small and dying horrible deaths.
Okay.
Elliot, what dwarves are you encountering in media?
Well, look at the Hobbit.
Oh, you know what? The Hobbit's a really good point. I like 12 out of the 13 dwarves on that party died. That's a really good point, Elliot. I had not considered the Hobbit, and that's on me. Let's do a roundup of a couple other famous dwarves. We've mentioned a few of them. Falar and Galar, who are the two dwarves that murdered Kvasir. That's what it is.
Kvasir.
And brewed the mead of poetry from his blood. We talked about them in our Veneer episode. Yeah, it's pretty dark. That story is probably also where we get the idea of dwarves being really good at brewing mead.
Being able to brew a magical mead through someone's blood is pretty impressive.
Not just someone who is the living embodiment of a peace treaty.
Yeah.
Dark
I guess
stuff.
there's a lot of iron in it.
Oh yeah.
Another dwarf we've mentioned before is Alvis, who is the dwarf that wanted to marry Thor's daughter, and Thor was like, "You are too ugly." So he kept asking him for like word rhymes basically until the sun came up, so he would turn to stone, and Thor could be like, "And that problem is solved."
Great.
Wow.
This man won't harass me anymore.
Yeah. And then I want to do a rundown of one that's a little bit more lengthy. And Vari, who is a dwarf who lives under a waterfall and can shapeshift into a pike, which is a kind of fish. And he had like a bunch of gold. Like so much gold.
Oh, this fella. Yeah.
Like a lot of gold. Because he had a magic ring that would help him find gold. And Loki, because he loves to cause problems for everybody, stole Envari's treasure and the ring. And in revenge, Envari cursed the ring to bring misfortune to whoever had it. And so Loki quickly gives the cursed ring away to Hreimdar.
So it's Lord of the Rings.
It's Lord of the Rings.
A little bit.
Elliot. Yes. So he gives the cursed ring away to the king of the dwarves as reparation for having accidentally, quote, 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 killed one of the king's sons. And so then, here's Fafnir, who was the king's other
Fafnir
son,
rolling up.
murdered his father to take the ring. and eventually
The
turned
goat.
into a dragon in order to protect it.
So yeah, the Hobbit.
So yeah, the Hobbit. And it doesn't end there, because Sigurd, who is one of the great heroes of Nordic legend, he eventually kills Fafnir, gets the ring, gives it to Brunhild, who is sometimes his wife, sometimes a Valkyrie. We talked about her a little bit in the past. And now the Queen Grimhild then manipulated Sigurd and Brunhild into marrying her children. And that brought the curse into her family. And Brunhild and Sigurd end up dead at some point in time. And then the brother, I think, Gunnar of Sigurd, eventually takes all the gold and just puts it back in the cave for Andvari to try to break the curse. And Andvari gets his gold back, but the ring is lost forever. That just disappears. Supposedly probably to bring misfortune onto others.
What's the timeline of this? Is it all through multiple, centuries?
So it's hard to say how much time has passed.
Yeah.
Because, I guess it depends on, how long does it take Fafnir to turn into a dragon? Who's to say?
Yeah.
But
Well, it was kind of fucking quick for Mr. Alderman.
Who?
yeah, don't worry about that.
It's fine.
It's fine. Elliot,
Yeah.
earlier you mentioned dwarves being short.
Uh-huh.
It's not a trap. I just thought that was a good segue for my next point.
Oh, yeah. Dwarves are short.
Yes,
It's
so
linked to dwarfism. That's where it comes from.
Yes, the word we use to describe the condition of dwarfism comes from the Germanic folklore of dwarves. But Norse dwarves weren't short.
Oh.
This was a rabbit hole that I was on the precipice of, but did not let myself fall too deeply into. But essentially, there are no descriptions of what dwarves look. There's really few descriptions of what anyone really looks like. We know Balder, kind of. We have descriptions of him. A few things of Thor sometimes. A couple signifiers, but there's not like you picture dwarves. They are stout in stature and have beards. And neither of those are a thing that we'll find in these stories of Norse dwarfs. Those would come much, much later, often believed as the idea of dwarves inspired by the Norse stories became intermingled with other Germanic folk tales about quote, little people and fairy folk and stuff like that, and those type of things. There are a couple sagas where there was a dwarf who was very short and had the power to make himself very, very tall, but he would be an outlier in the rest of this Nordic dwarfs particular.
I think in Celtic mythology there are small dwarves that would help people, and others that were against people who would trick people. There's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, the idea of dwarves and elves too, these elements we have today are so woven together with all sorts of different folklore and ideas that bring us to where we are at. But I saw this line I really liked that noted that in Skaldic and Eddic sources, it's been noted that the role of a dwarf is what defines them as a dwarf rather than their physical appearance. The fact that they are craftsmen and making valuable tools for the gods, that's how you know this is a dwarf, and not necessarily because they are short and have great facial hair.
So manual labor.
Not necessarily manual labor, craftsmanship. More to the point. They're not plowing.
Good with hands and arms.
Yeah, they're not carrying logs or building houses or digging wells. They are making the tools that would be used to do the manual labor. I'm going to stay on dwarves a little bit and talk about Svartalfheim, since that's something that Blitz mentions as he's from there. Because so the way we've really broken down the season is that we are going largely world by world. And that means these three worlds got paired together because listen, there's not a lot on elves, so they got paired in with the dwarves. So we'll get to that in a minute. But Nidavelheim, Nidavellir, and Svartalfheim are specifically interesting because either one might be cited as one of the 9 worlds, but never both of them.
Oh.
Because
Interesting.
they're mentioned so sparsely. Like, Nidavellir is mentioned in the Poetic Edda, in the Volspa poem. I cited that one earlier. Svartalfheim is only mentioned in the Prose Edda, in specifically this story we just talked about, where the sons of Ivaldi are, the crafting and the challenge, and they are stated as being from this place. And the translation literally means the world of black elves. Because they're associated with a race of elves called the Doka Lafar, which literally translates to dark elf.
At least they're consistent.
At least they're consistent. Essentially, there is... it's also another dwarf mentioned, Envari. That waterfall he lives under is in... DJ, say it for me again, Scott.
Svartalfheim.
Thank you. So, we have this well-known dwarf in this place that's supposed to be for dark elves. And the point I'm trying to make here is that scholars have kind of come to the conclusion that they think the dark elves and the dwarves were the same thing. Not every scholar. Some scholars will probably argue with that. But by and large, the idea... Because a lot of the dark elves would also fit the description and the roles that the dwarves were doing. Craftsmen, making things. Elliot, you look like you're losing your mind.
Yeah. No, I know. It's just that they say that, in Rick Riordan in Magnus Chase, he says that the Blitz, I think, is he is a dwarf. But he's like a tall dwarf who can pass for a small human, because he's a dark elf and all of that.
Yeah, Rick Riordan went ahead and I actually really I admire how he wove these two ideas together and just made it so, like, we're going to go with the word of the dark elves. That's just part of Nidavellir. They're all dwarves. Dark elves are just a kind of dwarf. And that tracks. That tracks with, like, a really interesting interpretation that really follows, like, kind of what these stories are going for. Now, the thing I don't super love about Rick deciding, well, what's
is the origin of the dark elves.
The origin of the dark elves. Him deciding that, well, where are the dark elves from? And him deciding, well, they are children of Freya. And I have screamed about that so much already, I won't make you listeners hear me again. And if you want to hear me again, you can go listen to our Freya and Freya episode where I screamed a bunch about it.
It's pretty bad. Kind of cringe.
It's very cringe. Elliot, it's so bad. Elliot, it's so bad. But
if you say
we move
so.
on. And so that is a cool thing. Like, in the interesting, sometimes Rick Riordan does things like make Cersei an antagonist who can't undo her own magic for no goddamn reason. And sometimes he does things like take weird, complicated, vague ideas in mythology that weren't well fleshed out and combining them together in a really interesting world building, largely satisfying kind of way.
Or try to prove, like, historical inaccuracies and stuff with the Vikings coming to the US.
Yes, he also did that. We can say
no, that one's Kino. I love that one so much. It's so stupid.
It is so stupid. So it's like the dwarves and then the dark elves are considered one of the same. Although, like, scholar John Lindau has commented that it's not clear if they were considered the same at the same time as the writing of the Prose Edda, or whether that's something that came about later as we lost distance from it. And it's impossible to say. But I do like Rick Riordan making the call of saying that they are one as the same and essentially, like, distinct but the same. Like, I think that is very interesting in, like, the world building and making it a cohesive narrative.
Well, he's also simplifying it for people who are being introduced to the mythology. It was easier it was easy for me to understand, and I know nothing about Norse mythology.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely, when I was getting into being like, are these elves or are they dwarves? I don't. And it's like easy, like, they're dwarves. Moving on. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. Now let's talk about elves. Elliot has not read the books where we go to Alfheim. So, DJ, do you want to describe what Alfheim is like real quick? Or Elliot, do you want to guess what you think Alfheim is like?
Okay. Woodsy, I think. Well, that's the imagination that we have with elves is woods. Very, aesthetic.
Cottagecore.
Yeah, cottagecore. Lots of pointy stuff. I don't know.
Like their ears?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say pointy stuff like glass, like ornate things is what I imagine.
Oh, spires?
Sure. Although it depends on the elf, to be honest.
Fair, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know how they were characterized. And isn't it that there's no night, so it's day all the time?
Yes.
So yeah, probably
It's always sunny in Alfheim.
Yeah. It is brighter than the sunniest day on Earth.
Yeah, my guess
And
is
it's always sunny.
Yeah, my guess is that the people don't sleep.
They do. They do sleep. That's the funny thing. They just close the windows. Maybe they could just sleep through it. I don't know. But
Maybe they put those like
they do sleep.
eye masks.
The mask is like just very fancy. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. DJ, what's it like in the books?
Well, it's always sunny. It is a little woodsy, but it's more of like a modern upper class neighborhood.
Oh,
At the very least, the area that we saw.
that's disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, they all forgot how to do magic. They don't do any archer stuff anymore, and they're all into technology. So I'm almost tempted to say modern Antebellum.
Honestly, DJ, modern Antebellum isn't wrong. I put evil country club vibes, but honestly, modern Antebellum is like exactly it.
Tempted to say
What's
that's because
what
like
is Antebellum?
Oh,
pre-Civil War South.
yeah. It's the word for the pre-Civil War South in the United States.
Yep.
So racist.
So racist. Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. I put, yep, basically racist. They actively practice slavery, so they're absolutely racist.
Well, let's
So
hope there's
it-
no plantations.
No. They just enslave other cultures that live there. It's not in the clouds, but it's kind of in the clouds. And gravity isn't the same there. Like, it's literally everything is light. Like, bright
Oh,
and...
like on the
and-
moon.
Like on the moon, yeah. Magnus mentions when he's there that, like, it feels weird. Like, he doesn't feel as heavy as he usually does.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope his muscles don't atrophy.
It's okay. They're not there for very long. Because fuck Alfheim.
Yeah, because this race is like white suburbia is what you're...
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah. And that's intentionally. That is the point that Rick Riordan is like, he is commenting on that kind of culture and that kind of mindset and behavior with framing Alfheim as this. And that being where Hearth is from, and Hearth being deaf and having to deal with a childhood in that space. Like, it is very interesting and very compelling. And I do appreciate in this one how different it is from what we would expect from like elves, because the idea we have from elves is, once again, something that happened over centuries and was blended with other like Germanic folk traditions. In Norse mythology, we've got next to nothing.
Oh.
Alfheim translates to Land of the Elves or Elfland. In the Grimsnall, that's right, Odin is once again playing undercover boss. And so someone is doing a wisdom game, citing all the things they know. And they're citing all of the, like, great halls of the lands. And we get this stanza that goes, Yuledale it is called, the place where Ull has made a hall for himself. Alfheim, the gods gave to Freyr in the bygone days as tooth payment.
Tooth payment.
So that was essentially, it's also called a teething gift. And the tradition was once a child began to, like, their teeth would begin to come in, they would get a gift. So when Freyr
He
was a
got
wee babe,
a country.
he was given Alfheim.
Was given the land of the elves.
Wow.
Yeah.
He really was fed with a silver spoon.
For real. No, for real.
He's the son of Odin. Nothing but the best.
He's not the son of Odin.
Oh, that's right. No, he's not. He's the son of Norn.
Yeah.
Only but the best.
Mm-hmm. That's where Alfheim is mentioned. Now, Snorri gets into the it's the Dokelfar and the Loslafar, which is the dark elves and light elves, and he gets all into that in the Gylfaginning, which I will now reference. Let me hop in.
So light elves are racists and dark elves are dwarfs.
Essentially, yeah. Not Loki. Snorri says that in this conversation they're having Gangleri, who is this king who is talking to these three beings, High, Justice High, and the third. Which is, we are pretty sure, just Odin 3 times. He asked them to describe other significant places in existence. And High says, there are many magnificent places there. One is called Alfheim. The people called the Light Elves live there, but the Dark Elves live below the earth. They are different from Light Elves in appearance and far more so in nature. Light Elves are more beautiful than the sun, while Dark Elves are blacker than pitch. And that is where it ends our commentary on the Dark Elves and the Light Elves.
Short and concise.
Yep. I find it interesting that this translation translates it as more beautiful than the sun. When I was doing research, I found that line a couple of times, and I've seen it as brighter or fairer than the sun, which would signify...
make more sense.
Yeah. Because I think there is...
Because looking at the sun, you become blind.
Yeah, it's less about a beauty when you say fairer or brighter, and more of they are physically
It's a skin tone thing.
light, like sunlight. They are white, and dark elves are literally black. Like it's more of like a color spectrum. Whereas if you describe them as beautiful as the sun, whereas dark elves are blacker than pitch, and the opposite, it does suggest that
ugly.
dark elves are inherently ugly. And that sucks.
Racism.
And
And
that's
I'm gonna be
racist.
real when you said it's weird that, like, I don't know, maybe it's strange how like dwarves became small, and I bet it's like the only thing we have on elves is that they're beautiful, you know, and that the dwarves are the opposite from the elves,
So we have height.
and I'm like, wow, it literally quite was that. It's like they are beautiful and graceful, and they height is being a standard of beauty, and like fair skin, and like just not working. Period. Also a thing of like beauty. And then the dwarves are an exact opposite. Short, hairy. They work with their hands. They're gruff.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's
yeah.
colorism and social hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because-
These other things that have woven into the way we view these mythological
But would it... Because I don't know about, like, the Vikings. They were, like, a very strong... violent population, and so I don't know if I think they would value making craftsmanship and all of that. So maybe this
absolutely.
judgment that we impose that like it was like colorism and all of that, maybe is just they didn't.
Well, I mean,
view
that's
it as
like
positive or negative.
Yeah, I think
Oh no, I don't think the Vikings viewed anything like the sort of that what we see elves and dwarves today. It probably really was that they were similar in nature, but dark elves crafted for the gods, so they like it's not like they disrespected them. They were just
different.
similar. Yeah, just different. Similar enough to be like compared to each other, but different enough to be like their own thing.
Yeah, that's why like
I think the. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, like, that's why I noted that the fact that it's translated in this text as beautiful as the sun rather than, like, brighter or fairer is a distinct decision to denote beauty where perhaps there wasn't one. It's just these are light elves because they are physically very bright. These are dark elves because they are physically dark. And that is just the distinguisher. That is just a descriptor that was not necessarily meant to carry any cultural judgment other than that's blonde girl, that's a brunette girl. And that just being a statement doesn't necessarily mean anything, but we as a culture can bring meaning into how we have come to view those traits. But yeah, that's the place we find that mentioned. Here's the thing about the elves, is that I have nothing more to give you. I have, unlike...
Frieren's a great anime. You should go watch it.
Okay, well,
We're not there yet. That's one of the elves that I chose. I think it was my number one, actually. But I have stuff about Fae, if you want, because I did research about fairies.
Yes, hold on. I have nothing more to give you. I have one more
pulling.
thing. I have nothing more to give you, and then let me underline and prove it. So,
Okay.
unlike in the dwarves, where I was able to give you a list of like, here's some noteworthy dwarves, and that's not even all the dwarves that have names. Those are just the ones that like noteworthy enough to have some story and stuff I thought would be interesting to share. But there are dozens and dozens more that are just named, right? I could not find a list of named elves. Like I found one guy, his name is Dane, and in a poem, hold on, let me reference that poem.
Like
Which
the
one is that one,
dog.
though? Like the dog.
Like the cook.
There's a cook named Dane?
Dane Cook is a
Dane
comedian
Cook,
in
the
the
comedian.
U.S.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's spelled D-A-I. There's like a little marquee above one of the vowels and N. I'm choosing to pronounce it as Dane. That could be incorrect.
Could be like dying.
Dane, probably. There's more of an inflection, but I do what I can. I can't overthink it, or I'm not going to be able to say it, and then we're stuck here. Then I have to edit out me tripping over my own tongue.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Dane, who is, I will admit, dog, often a dwarf, but in this example, in Sayings of the High One, is an elf. Specifically, an elf who gave runes to the other elves. The runes you must find in meaningful letters, with great letters, very stiff letters, which are the mighty sage colored and the huge powers made, and the rune master of the gods carved out. Odin among the Aesir, and Dane among the elves, Dafslin among the dwarfs, Osvid among the giants. I myself carved some.
Ooh.
The only famous elf.
The kind of the only named elf I could find. Other places kept citing this dude, hold on, what is this man's name? Voldor, who is the protagonist of the Voldakavira, which is a saga. Other places kept citing him as an elf. He is better known as Wayland the Smith. He was a renowned blacksmith and the son of the king of the Finns. And the Finns was actually the Old Norse name for the Sami, who are the indigenous people of the north of that area in what became Sweden, Finland, and Norway. So I don't know why he would be interpreted as an elf. I didn't read this thing. I read the SparkNotes summary of it. And honestly, I'd be more likely to cite this dude as a dwarf for all the stuff he makes. He turns some dude's son's skulls into goblets and their eyes into jewels. So, like...
Nice.
I don't know.
Eyes into jewels.
I was fascinated by that. Like, how would you even...
Like the crystallization of an eye.
It's actually way more like dark and gory. He literally just like cracked their skull open with their eyes still in it and was just drinking from it, and they made it a goblet.
Shit, TJ.
I understand making
It's
a goblet.
way darker. Like it's purely metaphorical, but also not really.
I understand making a goblet out of a skull. I think they do that in Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
But like the whole making jewels out of eyes is very weird because the eyes.
It's just to show how talented he was.
Just a great
he
smith.
stopped the whole decomposition process. If that.
They became carbonite diamonds.
Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah,
you
man,
if you
compressed them
put
so
too
much.
much pressure on an eye, apparently it becomes a diamond.
Yeah, there's carbon in that. Sure. Yeah. Look into that for me, will you? For lore. So.
Yeah, could you not like don't look into Percy Jackson lore. Look into Norse lore.
Just for a bit.
Norse mythology,
Just for funsies.
please. Just for a
Just
little
for
bit.
funsies, for me, as a treat. No, don't do that. That sounds upsetting. and would drive Owen mad, I fear.
I have some stuff about dwarves. I don't know if you remember, but the first time I came here, it was to talk about how Medusa had like stone dwarves in her garden.
Yeah, that's right. That was in our Olympus roundup.
And
Yeah.
because there's no like dwarves, or not really dwarves in mythology, in Greek mythology, that means
Yeah.
that she would like put the dwarves in like gnome attires and stuff, and then
It would-
petrify them to sell them.
What's also interesting
Just-
is that dwarves in Norse mythology, and then canonically in the Riordan books, turn to stone in the sunlight. So it's entirely possible that Medusa just came upon some dwarves who were already stone, and she just added them to her collection.
Like, oh, sick. I didn't even have to do these? That was awesome.
Yeah, and then she freaks the fuck out when she sees them.
When it starts raining.
Oh yeah, that's right, because of her bag of water. And then she puts them in the costume, and then she properly turns them into stone with her powers, and they don't undo. Or maybe
Yeah.
they do, because it's a built-in like natural thing of the dwarves, and they just keep having to.
It's just a natural
every
defense
time
system against
they're kept on the
petrification.
inside, so they don't get wet.
Yeah.
She just puts on, like, when someone's buying it, just a sign. Special stone cannot get
Yes,
wet.
it's like
Yeah.
moonstone. You can't get moonstone wet; it'll dissolve. Will it
It's like-
dissolve?
There you go.
Cleo.
Yeah,
and-
basically.
Pretty much.
Okay, so last thing I have on the elves is kind of like trying to like hypothesize why there's not so much. Like, there's a ton about dwarves. Dwarves are just around. Dwarves are doing stuff. There's this one elf who's named, and he's sometimes even a dwarf. So, like, I don't even know, man. But scholars have kind of come to the conclusion that the elves may have been viewed as semi-divine with, like, a specific connection to the Vanir. Especially because Frey was given Alfheim as a gift and considered the lord of Alfheim. That definitely makes a connection to the elves and the Vanir in that way.
What is it with Norse mythology and teeth? Like veneers, teething. ceremony?
Veneers? I keep saying Vanir.
Like, because I'm not 100% sure what a veneer. Like, for me, a veneer is fake teeth.
Oh, yeah.
Vanir. It's one of the
Yeah, Vanir is one of the gods who are ruling over Vanaheim.
yeah. So it's the
okay.
Aesir and who are of Asgard, and the Vanir who are of Vanaheim. These are two families of gods, and Frey and Freya are actually they are of the Vanir, but they're also considered part of the Aesir.
Okay,
So-
Yeah.
so not fake teeth.
So not fake teeth.
Not fake teeth.
Okay, speaking of the Aesir, though, in Norse poetry, there was this alliteration that comes up a lot. Aesir ok Alfar, which translates to Aesir and elves. And that has led even more scholars to suggest that there was probably, well, not even that these two were like linked, but that perhaps the Aesir and the elves were the same group. Like the elves are just another name for the Aesir gods, which is why we see it named so infrequently, because it is. They're named all the time. It's all of the Aesir. We've just lost the fact that elf was just another word for it. And there was just this subset of gods that were the light elves that lived on Alfheim.
The racists.
The racists. Well, the racists
Yeah.
in Rick Riordan's book, sounds like they don't have a lot of opinions in Norse mythology. And that is officially all I have on elves.
It's not a lot on elves.
Elliot, I understand you have some Fae research to present to the class.
Yeah. So my research was I looked up some stuff and I found I did like my own research and then I found two YouTubers who actually made like really good videos about Fae and their evolution. One
Oh,
of them
nice.
is the book Leo, and it's from Tinkerbell to Fae Smut, the evolution of the Fae.
Nice.
And the other one was Proper Bird, Let's Talk About Fae. And then I did some other research, and what I got was basically Fae and Fairy are the same thing. The Fairy is is an umbrella term for anything that is so like gnomes, elves, fairies, all of that were considered fae before. And the last part, re, is apparently just a French like
Really?
thing that they just added. Yeah.
For flair? For flavor?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And
Neat.
and so the fairies, it was just the umbrella for everything, and fae were just beautiful creatures, because nymphs, for example, in Greek mythology, were considered fae.
That makes sense,
And-
yeah.
Okay.
And so it evolved throughout time, and there wasn't any specific description, so no pointy ears, nothing. It was just beautiful women. And then during the Victorian period,
Those Victorians.
no, actually before that, the idea that we have of fae now, of like beautiful women in flowy dresses, comes from Shakespeare, A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, yeah. Maybe the Elizabethan era.
The Elizabethan era, and so that's where we get the idea of like really magical beings that are very pretty, because they weren't seen as like, some were pretty, some were ugly. It wasn't seen as particular in any way. And then during the Victorian era, painters used because of like the Industrial Revolution and all of that, there was a reconnection with the mystical side of society and how it was before the Industrial Revolution. And so painters would paint a lot of fairies and fae and elves and all of that. And it
Yeah.
was also an excuse to just paint a bunch of naked women because
Yeah.
because it was very like prude. It was a prude society, but if you were painting folklore, you were allowed to paint naked women, and so a lot of painters
Loophole.
use that as an excuse to make them very sexy. And then later on, when there was no longer this need for like sexiness and all of that, it was the fairies started to get shorter and smaller so that they could sit on laps. And then another author described fairies as having insect-like wings, and then
Oh.
all of that changed so that we associated fairies more with children's fairy tales
Yeah.
and all of that. So they get smaller and smaller. And then nowadays we associate fairies and elves with like a bunch of authors in fantasy. And there's a bunch of subcategories. For example, Sarah J. Maas, the
Oh, yeah.
fae. They're
Queen of that. Holly
yeah,
Black.
there she doesn't really take inspiration from anything apart from the whole court system. Apparently, like the seasonal thing comes from I think Celtic,
Yeah, that's a
folklore.
folklore thing.
Yeah.
and yeah, just makes them hot. But there was a distinction between high and low fae, but I didn't do that much research on it.
That seems like too much of a deep dive. I appreciate the effort you already put into it.
Yeah,
I think
and
we got to shout out Tolkien. Like, we cannot underestimate what
course.
J.R.R. Tolkien did for, or perhaps to, elves and dwarves in fantasy. Like, I don't think he whole cloth invented it all. Like you said, like the crafts is from like Norse and stuff, and like there are so many elements from other folklores that really tied into it, like the elves being more of like the fair folk in the woods and stuff, and not necessarily like aligned with humanity in the same way. But putting all those pieces together and how he wove them together, just all the way down to like D&D today, we have what is an elf and what is a fairy, and it is Tolkien is almost always responsible, unless someone's taking
wonder-
very big swings in interpretations.
Yeah, I wonder where the pointy ears came from.
Yeah,
Like, why did he decide to put pointy ears?
yeah. Is that something that was older? Is that from art? Like, because it's
I
not. It's
didn't
another thing.
see. I think I saw some art before Tolkien where they had pointy ears, but they were like little tiny fairies, like Tinkerbell-ish fairies.
Yeah.
But before that, it was just a bunch of naked women dancing in a circle, draping themselves
mood.
over stuff.
My Saturday nights. I feel like I need to talk about Aragon briefly because elves and dwarves are in that. But like honestly, it is just the Tolkien dwarves again and the elves. So like, the only reason I'd really formally bring it up is to be like, hey, y'all should also be listening to my other podcast, Aragon and Back Again. People say they like it. Elliot,
I like it. I like it a lot. I follow it.
Thank you.
I use it for my writing. I
Aw.
use it when I go shopping. I usually listen to it.
That's I want that the highest compliment for me is to be told your podcast keeps me company when I shop. Thank you so much. I strive. That is the content I'm striving to make, is to keep you company while running errands.
Yeah, because I don't like silence. I like to have stuff, to listen to stuff. So I'm always listening to something, and you guys are one of the things I listen to.
Lucy will be so happy.
Nice.
Yeah, just check out the videos because they're really good, and they, the book Leo, the one about with the title Face Mat, she put all of the links to all the research articles and stuff that she did, and I went and looked at those as well. And so yeah, it's really well organized and stuff.
It's like, will you send me links to those videos and I can put them in the show notes for people to check out directly?
Yeah,
awesome.
I think she also references The Cruel Prince as well.
Oh damn, I read that.
Yeah,
It's Holly Black.
it's,
The woman knows what she's
Yeah.
doing. All right, so let's get into, speaking of, Sarah J. Maas, Holly Black, J.R.R. Tolkien, let's talk a little bit about our fictional favorites. I don't think there are too many examples of elves or dwarves that are very specifically this Norse version entirely. Because like we talked about, there have been so many other inspirations that have been folded into what we will see as like an elf or a dwarf, that for this one, I think we should throw open the floodgates and just spend a little time talking about our faves. DJ, would you like to go first?
There's no creature living nor dead, more greedy, more vile than a dwarf. In the frozen reaches of Asgard, beneath her mighty stone peaks, do they dwell, ever hammering to forge more gold jewelry, to carve more gleaming gems, to breathe curses into their finery. Among these wretched kin is Fafnir, son of Hreidmar, with a swollen smithing arm and a ravenous hunger for violence, both of which are eclipsed by his avarice. One spring, Loki, Odin, and Honir visited Hreidmar's realm. Bearing an otter pelt they'd skin on their journey. Horrified, Hreidmar out entombed the Aesir, for the otter was, in truth, his third son.
Oh shit, that's the story we mentioned earlier.
Freedom would not be theirs until Loki returned the hide filled with gold. Refusing to be outdone, the trickster god stuffed his pelt bursting with the cursed treasure of Andvari. Hreidmar, unaware of the maligned hoard, greedily exchanged the Aesir for the wealth. That night, curling his powerful arm, Fafnir strangled his father and vanished into the frosted nights with the cursed gold. And so it was that madness took him. Paranoid his last brother would steal the treasure, Fafnir guarded it jealously, while the curse whispered in his ear. Slowly, surely, twisted he became, scaled and nightmarish. His breath turned into poison, his maw fanged, his demeanor fouler. A dragon he became, the very symbol of greed. For centuries, Fafnir kept no company, but the war of the gods grows ever closer, and the clink of coins runs rampant. A bulging sack on the belt of every warrior, he craves every piece, and spares no thought to shed blood for the glittering gold. He has a really sweet skin where he turns into like a griffin. It's awesome.
Here's the thing. I was not prepared for you to launch into a SMITE lore, and that's just on me. At this point, at 4 years into the game, I should always be prepared for DJ to launch into SMITE lore. 2, this finally explains why you've always been so into Fafnir, and you mention him a lot. I didn't realize he was
I like him. He's cool. He was the first transforming character in SMITE. Yeah,
that's cool. I find it interesting that at the top of the lore it talks about like
SMITE?
What is SMITE?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like League of Legends, but third person, and you play as like beings from mythology.
Like Hades.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like Hades, Zeus, Odin,
No, like the
Pele
game.
from Polynesian,
Oh.
Amaterasu from like Japanese.
Like the game Hades.
Very true.
Kind of. It's a battle royale game and not a roguelike.
No, it's not even a battle royale.
What
it's
is a
a
battle
it's a
royale,
MOBA,
then?
like League. Battle royale is the 100-man
Damn.
versus
I don't
It's
know
like
what- I
Hunger
don't know.
Games.
typically.
Hunger
I'm
Games
not
is a battle
Use of
It's just a
royale.
battle
gaming.
royale.
For a reason.
But Smite's it's like 3 lanes, team of 5. You all fight against each other. It's all fun.
And is maybe the one
Oh.
reoccurring bit that has survived all 4 years of this podcast is that we will continue to talk about Smite.
Oh yeah, he's not Smite 2 yet, which bums me out. But I'm excited to see his scaling and such in it.
I think it's interesting at the top of the lore it talks about how like dwarves are evil and cruel. But like Fafnir killed his family and became a dragon because the gold was cursed. So he can't really be held responsible for that. And the only other time in like major like Norse mythology that dwarves suck is when those 2 dwarves kill Kvasir. So like by and large dwarves are pretty chill. So I do find it interesting that Smite decided they all suck. They're the worst.
Yeah, because Odin's the worst. He pushed a dwarf in the fire.
That was Thor.
Thor. That was Thor?
That was Thor. He just
That
kicked
was
him in the
Thor.
fire.
He just kicked him.
Oh my god. Wow. Anger issues.
For real.
Yeah.
No, for real, for real. He tried to fish out the world serpent just to prove a point.
It's funny.
Elliot, do you have a favorite elf and or dwarf that you would like to celebrate?
Well, I had Frieren, but DJ already
Go
talked
off!
about it. But yeah, Frieren is, I think, the like number 1 rated anime on my anime list or something. But it's a very, very good
Yeah.
anime, and she's very powerful and quite a complex character, and I like her a lot. And also, what I wanted to, we never talked about the fact that there's no women dwarves or elves mentioned.
Yeah, that is a
And-
thing. Yeah, that's a thing that I
There's
like.
not a lot of elves mentioned in period for that.
No,
one.
but that's the thing. Like that
women
is
dwarves.
like historically. That's actually a line in the research that I looked at and was like, I can't. I have to finish. I have to at least get a whole. I have to get a start in. But yeah, the like lineage of like there are no doors except there is one time a woman is mentioned and she is said to be the daughter of a king of the dwarves, and so like I don't remember who that was. Is that Induri? Shit, I didn't write it down. But yeah, no, there is like weirdly no women are mentioned as being dwarves, and that could indicate some cultural perceptions about, at the very least, crafting and blacksmiths. And if this was like a trait that was inherent to dwarves and women are never mentioned as dwarves, like it could communicate that in Nordic culture it was not incredibly common for women to be creating things like that. But I don't know enough about Norse culture to speak on that. That's not what this show is about, but it should be sometimes.
Not at all.
But yeah, mine would probably be Frieren or Thranduil. I like him as well. He's petty and he's fun.
Oh, that's Legolas's dad.
Yeah, because Legolas
took
is
me a
too
sec.
basic. I like
He's-
his dad more.
He's pretty basic. Yeah. Yeah.
Because his dad is a petty
Legolas,
bitch.
Legolas and Gimli form a touching friendship that happens kind of off screen.
Yeah.
It has some big moments. Don't get me wrong, it's got some big moments on screen, but there's a lot that happens off screen too.
You've seen the extended
Meanwhile, his
editions.
dad is very sassy. And I
Yeah,
like him.
even
So
still, that's what I mean. There are some big moments. Don't get me wrong. Big moments we get on screen, really nice. However, sometimes it feels like, wow, we just got here. Let's go. I mean, don't get me wrong. Great line from Gimli, or great line from Gimli and Legolas at the end. I'll die next to a
Yeah,
friend.
I never
Pete.
thought I'd
Awesome.
die
Big
next
fan.
to an elf. Well, how about, what is it, fighting next to a friend?
Don't they
Yeah,
hate
yeah,
each
peak.
other?
Big.
At the beginning.
At
I
the
think at
beginning,
the start they
yeah.
dislike each other,
Because
but
elves
that's
and
also
dwarves
because
inherent-
Gimli is.
That's another thing. We didn't even get into that. How like elves and dwarves are like inherently the opposite, and probably from like this light
don't
elf,
like
dark
each
elf
other.
thing. But like aside from that one line in the prose Edda, there's nothing in Nordic texts that suggest elves and dwarves don't get along any more or less than any other group.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the whole vampire werewolf thing.
Yeah. I do think maybe Tolkien is personally responsible for the elf and dwarf enemy ship,
I wouldn't doubt
I
that.
think.
Big fan. My favorite dark elf all time is Gwen from Newman.
Oh
Big
my
fan.
god! I didn't even think of Newman. Wow.
Big
Yeah.
fan. Also, big fan of that dark elf culture. So funny.
What is
Cracks me up every time.
You get it, DJ. You want a goth girl with big titties to step on you.
I don't want her to step on me. I'm not into that.
When I type
But, hey, there was a sister that wasn't into that, and she's like, "Yeah, I just kind of like want to hang out with you, chat."
That's true.
I'm a big fan of that.
It's a web series.
Newman?
A webcomic.
Because I just get Victorian Newman from The Boys when I type that.
Search Newman webcomic
It was on Webtoons.
or
It's,
Josh
yeah.
Ulrich.
It's actually it's genuinely very charming. It's about
Big fan
a
of
gnome
With
and a dark elf gal who
Big
are
titties,
partners.
goth Kiev.
I mean, yes, but it's they have like a workplace romance, and yeah,
Yep, that one's good. Very
and it's like
peak,
it is
honestly.
genuinely very charming. They did a Christmas Carol special that we talked about
Small.
on Newsmiss.
Small titty goth Kiev.
That's true. Gwen,
You're like medium titty.
Gwen is not big titty goth girl. I was perhaps
No,
exaggerating
she's not
to
overly
bully
busty,
DJ.
but yeah, bully, dude. Yeah,
And you?
Okay, good. Yes, everybody, shut up. I'm gonna talk about Elfquest now. Okay,
oh man.
I don't have a lot of time because I have a hard out in order to pick up some groceries, dear listener. So,
Favorite character,
Skywise. Whoa.
favorite arc.
Oh, the one where it's the second arc after they have the kids and he has to travel and they first find the castle. Ooh, no, the one where they meet the elves in the mountains and they go to war against the trolls and they all fuck beforehand and then they win and then they meet the castle and turns out this old white she-wolf that's been with them the whole time was the mother of the wolf riders. And DJ, you can't just do that to me.
What is the
Fuck,
show?
Mary, kill. No, I don't know any enough
I'm
characters.
Ace, I
to
don't
do
play that game.
What is the show?
So this is a comic book series from
Yeah.
the 70s and 80s. It's
Like a
recently
while ago.
actually officially wrapped up. It cost a couple years ago. It's been ongoing for a
It
while by
went
Wendy
that-
and
It
Richard
went on
Penny.
that long?
It's a long time.
Holy shit!
Very, very long. It was one of the first comic books I ever read because our mother collected them. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to read them for good reason. These are adult grown-up comic books. But when I was...
What are you I read them when I was in fourth
Yeah,
grade.
you should not have read them when you were in fourth grade.
I shouldn't.
What is
You're
fourth
right, but I
grade?
did.
10
Fifth
years
year?
old. School at 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have a different system in France.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was like, I don't know I don't know what it equals to in European schools.
In
So age 10.
France.
Every country has a different system.
That's true.
True.
Yeah, it is essentially not essentially. It is a fantasy series that picks up in a prehistoric world where there are these group of elves. They live in the forest. They are called wolf riders because they have an intensely telepathic relationship with this wolf pack. And story picks up with the wolf riders being forced out of their forest home by the humans who believe that they are evil demonic spirits. And so they burn the woods and they have to escape. They go through the tunnels underground where the trolls live and they end up in a desert. And they just are traveling across a desert and they are not going to survive. And in the middle of the desert, they find this village of other elves. Totally different culture, totally different community. And it is about these two groups that have to learn how to coexist. And it's got some dated culture and gender dynamics. So, but by and large,
70s and 80s.
yes, but was also written by a woman, so not as bad as it could have been. And is very charming, and it has interesting like magic lore, and it gets very sci-fi eventually, where you find out the elves were originally aliens traveling the stars. Oh,
excuse me.
Oh, DJ, you never got to volume 7. Clearly, yes,
I got to volume 3, I think.
There are
This
8 in
whole,
the
like-
original run.
What is Skywise's true name?
Oh, what is Skywise's true name? Skywise's true name is... I know Cutter's is Tam, because specifically Tam Lin is a name of a...
Oh, Sarah J. Maas, that's the blonde guy.
Yes, Sarah J. Maas got it because it is a name from folklore of a... Either he's a fairy or he is a man who was kidnapped by the Fae. A fairy queen kidnaps him and his wife goes and saves him.
Oh, nice.
I have a character in my draft who is the son of a woman and a fairy knight who is defected and is in disguise, and they named their son Tamlin.
Nice.
Now I have to change that because Sarah J. Maas and it's too popular. Like, I could still do it, but it just completely distracts from the thing. But that's originally why his name is that.
Wait, your like elves comic book reminds me a bit of the Do you guys know the Dragon Prince? It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I'm not
They
seeing.
I've
have a
seen the first
bunch of
couple seasons.
elves and the like culture thing as well.
Yeah.
Reminds me a bit
Yeah.
of that. Like,
Yeah,
is
the
it-
sun elves and the moon elves are a little
Oh, yeah,
bit like
moon
wolf
elves.
riders and then the sun folk.
yeah,
but-
I've only watched season 1, so
Oh, it's fun. But yeah, you find out eventually that it's the elves or aliens who are traveling, and they made themselves look like beautiful, majestic humans because they visited the Middle Ages. And then the other creatures that were their servants were like, "Fuck this noise! We don't want to go back. We want to stay here." And they sabotaged their ship and crash landed them in the ancient prehistoric times, where like Neanderthalic humans, not actual Neanderthals. This is it's the
time
world of two
travel.
moons. They time travel,
Yeah.
yes, and crash landed them there. And so the elves, the one elf changed herself into a wolf so she could hunt for her community, and ended up hooking up with one of the wolves in wolf form because she just never turned back, and brought her son, and her son became the first of the wolf riders, and that is the lineage and all the way through. And then anyway, that's why I wanted to talk about Elfquest, because I've never gotten to talk about it on the podcast before, but it is one of my first hyperfixation. Listeners, you heard how fast I got full deep when the DJ started asking me questions. What is Skyriser's true name? I can't remember. But they also have this cool lore where, because they can speak telepathically, in order to protect their true identities, they actually have like a true soul name, and then their given name they share with everybody. And the way you know you have met your soulmate is because when you see them, their true name appears in your mind.
Yeah, and this is something that
like Sarah J.
cannot be stopped and almost can't be ignored either.
Yeah, no, Sarah J. Maas was pulling a lot from lore that existed in other places.
Yeah, the
Girly
whole,
Pop's not inventing things whole cloth.
Yeah, I've never read Sarah J. Maas.
I
Just
haven't
knowing.
either. It's just not my.
And
It's
this-
not my jam, and that's okay. It's not everything has to be for me.
Yeah, I watched the video of this girl who recaps all of the books. Like, it's
Fun.
like unnecessarily unhinged recap of all the books. She's very popular.
Nice.
What a mood. We could be here all day, all night. I feel like I need a side of dwarf too. You know what? Speaking of Aragon, I will shout out Auric from the Aragon books. That man's a ride or die. He's got Aragon's back from the jump. He's a great guy. I can't
Nice.
remember if he dies or not. Here's the thing. We could be here all night talking about elves and stuff and dwarves, because there's a lot to talk about, except if you're talking about elves from Norse mythology, in which case there's one dude, Dane like the dog. So, Elliot, thank you so very much for being with us at this truly unreasonable hour for you. Please tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, it's only 4:30 in the morning, so it's fine. And the listeners, if they like Percy Jackson and want to know how it is for a person who doesn't know anything about Percy Jackson to read it for the first time, they can go on to my podcast that I have with my co-host Alice, and she doesn't know the books, and so we go chapter by chapter, and she gives all her theories and stuff. And Darian was actually on it for the Cersei chapter. She was
loud. I was loud.
You were opinionated.
I was crazed. Y'all, we did the Cersei chapter like 3 years ago on the podcast, where I was not the version of myself I have reached today. Let me tell you, our Cersei episode would be very different today. That may be in our roundup. Something. This is the first time the listeners will have heard about it. DJ and I have talked about how after this season, before getting into whatever we're going to get into next, potentially doing a handful of episodes that are revisiting topics we did on our podcast of Poseidon era. So it'd be like Dionysus (parentheses Muses version).
It's mostly like the first season.
Yeah, but there's a couple that even the later ones around like
couple in season.
Cersei would be a very different episode today. I can tell you that for sure. So
well, you can have a preview if you go on our podcast.
That's true. I don't need to do a Cersei episode. It's over on Elliot's podcast. And Elliot, what is your podcast called?
Oh, it's called the Demigod Pod. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. And yeah, we have fun there. We get distracted very easily, but we do our best. And Alice is way too smart for her own good. It's very, very hard to try and gaslight her into thinking. Like, she managed to guess Luke was the twist villain in chapter 9 or something.
Damn, that is very impressive.
And
it was
just with the prophecy. Just with the prophecy. Like,
damn.
That's how she guessed. She was like, yeah, Luke. And so I had to gaslight her for like half a year that it wasn't Luke.
That is the challenge. Like with my friend Kels, sometimes we'll be like engaging in media that I've already seen and I'm watching with her. And so she'll predict something and she'll be totally right because she's very good at consuming media. And I have gotten to the habit of like, if she guesses something, whether it's right or wrong, I just look at her and I ask, do you want me to tell you? And the answer is usually, no, I don't want to know. And that helps me not give it away as long as I'm reacting the same way every time. Do you want me to tell you?
For me,
understandable.
I will usually say, like, explain and then try and contradict it, whether it's correct or not. I will try and contradict it.
That is truly, yeah, you're truly gaslighting your co-host.
So, yeah, I mean, you can also follow us on Instagram. We have... So basically every episode I ask questions to Alice, like that are pretty dumb, and I post them on Instagram so that their listeners can answer as well. And we read the answers on the podcast. So yeah, follow us on Instagram.
I follow you on Instagram, but my feed has not been showing me this post. I'm gonna have to hunt for them, like a hunt for.
It's not posts, it's stories, but I put them in the highlights.
Okay, I'm gonna get into the highlights then. Fantastic, love that.
You can answer all of them. Just be free.
I'm an info dump. It's gonna be great. Obviously, listeners, link to Elliot's show and their Instagram is gonna be in the show notes. Go give them a follow. It's super fun. It's such a cool dynamic. I don't think there's any other. I think there are ones where neither of the listeners have read the books they're on now because they like did all the ones that they read and now have gone to later ones, or they don't remember, or listeners are like when we were going through like the trials, we haven't yet, but there was a point in time where I hadn't. But like I can't think of any of the other shows off the top of my head that have that dynamic of like you've heard it all and then someone else is brand new.
We're just on book 2, so like we have a while to
do.
go.
That's so fun.
Nice.
Well, Elliot, thank you again so much for joining us. This has been a delight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, listeners, we will be back in your ears on Tuesday, November 5th to talk about a big one. We finally reached Asgard. And until then, don't be like Zeus.
Don't be like Zeus.
Don't be like Zeus.
Muses of Mythology is created and hosted by Darren and DJ Smart. It's edited by Darren Smart. The The show is produced by Darren and DJ Smart, as well as
Tim O'Connor.
The Crystal Conman. Nicholas Miller.
Our music is Athens Festival by Martin Hain. And our cover art is by Audrey Miller. You can find her on Instagram at bombshellnutshellart.
Want more Muses of Mythology? Support the show on Patreon. Just $1 gets you exclusive bonus content. Get more at patreon.com/Muses of Mythology.
You can also support the show by leaving a review at lovethepodcast.com/Muses of Mythology. Or tell a friend why you love the show.
Don't forget to check out all of our episodes and episode transcripts at musesofmythology.com.
Thanks for listening.